This is the 2018 Range Rover Velar. I don't care what anyone says, this is the greatest looking SUV on the road today. Traditionally, I haven't been a big fan of SUVs, but this is something different. It starts with great proportions. It's commanding, it's muscular, but it's also very sleek and very contemporary. But no matter how modern looking this vehicle is, it's unmistakably a Land Rover from all angles. I mean, look at this thing. Super short overhangs, aggressive character lines, especially towards the rear, swept back and forward lights front and rear, and small details like a rear spoiler, quasi-honeycomb grille, and flush-mounted handles. It feels special, and it feels bespoke, and it makes you want to go for a long, hard drive. So of course, that's what I plan to do, until Mother Nature had other ideas. This is not really what I had planned. You may be asking yourself why I'm in a parking garage right now, and that would be a great question. It's the 15th of April here in Toronto, and believe it or not, we have had a crazy ice storm that has kind of ground the city to a halt. So today, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna try to find a spot. We'll talk about this rather lovely interior, and then I'm gonna try to get this car back to the lot because it's the end of my week with it, unfortunately. In between now and then, we'll talk a little bit about what I think makes this Velar a pretty interesting proposition if you're in the market for a premium vehicle. So, life's given me some lemons. Let's make some lemonade. Very carefully, oh, that's slippery. Let's start talking about this Velar. This Velar was launched for the 2018 model year, designed to sandwich itself in between the Evoque, which is a smaller crossover vehicle, and the Range Rover Sport. And it's interesting because it doesn't really neatly fit into any category. For example, it competes with something like the Porsche Macan S on price. However, it's a little bit bigger. It has more off-road capability than that vehicle, and it's not nearly as fast in a straight line. It also could compete with something like the X3, the GLC from Mercedes, the Jaguar F-Pace, of which this shares a common platform, but it's a lot more expensive than those cars. Let's talk about a BMW X5, maybe, but it's smaller. So it doesn't really neatly fit into a category. So therefore, it could satisfy somebody who is cross-shopping any one of those vehicles. This top dog Velar is powered by a 3-liter supercharged V6 engine, good for 380 horsepower and 332 foot-pounds of torque. And if those figures and that engine sounds familiar, that's because it is. It's all across the JLR family of vehicles, including the F-Pace and the F-Type. Now in this application, it's had the snarl taken out of the exhaust note ever so slightly, this being a Range Rover. It's more about being posh and elegant than it is outright obnoxious performance. However, still very capable, 0 to 100 in 5.7 seconds. Yes, that's slower than the F-Pace, but this is a lot heavier. It's been really gussied up with all the features, leather and nice materials and everything. Now, if you compare this to a vehicle like the Macan or the F-Pace, those are a lot sportier crossover vehicles. I would say this Velar is in many ways a more traditional SUV. You sit up higher, you have a very nice commanding view of the road. Now, that's not to say this is sloppy at all. I've been really surprised at how capable and how well handling this Velar is. It stays perfectly flat around corners. However, compared to those vehicles, this is clearly tuned to be a more posh ride, a smooth ride, a more eloquent ride, and it definitely delivers on that front. Now, this particular Velar is equipped with optional 22-inch wheels. They look amazing, but man, do they introduce a lot of chop into this cabin. It's been a little bit disappointing, and I find that it's out of step with the character of this vehicle. If I were to go for a Velar, I would definitely be looking at the 18 or 20-inch wheel options. Perhaps the best part of the Velar is the cabin. This is the first in the Land Rover fleet to issue traditional buttons for an almost entirely digital dashboard. The result is a clean, super modern, and dramatic looking center stack area brimming with technology. Gracing the dashboard are two 10-inch wide screens with the upper handling navigation and infotainment duties, and the lower dealing primarily with vehicle options and settings. It looks intimidating, especially for people who aren't all that tech savvy, but I was surprised at just how intuitive this system is. A combination of scroll wheels and tablet-style navigation make it pretty easy to learn, and unlike some other reviews I've read, I actually didn't have a hard time using basic functions while driving. Heated and cooled seats? Yes, super comfy, easy to adjust, and one of many in a predictably lengthy list of add-ons. The materials in this HSE model are absolutely top-notch. Perforated Windsor leather is everywhere, especially in this car, which has the extended leather package. Aluminum and glass materials give this particular spec a more understated look, but all surfaces feel and look super high quality. This is a neat feature. The buttons on the steering wheel adjust automatically to whatever menu you happen to be navigating. And you will be doing a lot of navigating, as in addition to two 10-inch infotainment screens, you have a full digital dashboard layout and available heads-up display. And we haven't forgotten about our passengers. The back is spacious even for adults, with equally supple leather and available seat-mounted AV system. Now, one thing you won't find on the F-Pace and most of the competition is air suspension, which comes as standard equipment on this Velar. And that's going to allow you to do some pretty cool things. Depending on which mode you're in, whether it's sport or eco mode or snow and gravel or off-roading mode, it'll automatically adjust the air suspension. So as you can imagine, if you're in dynamic mode, it'll lower the suspension down. If you're in off-roading mode, it'll raise that up to give you maximum clearance. And that speaks to the fact that this is a Range Rover. This still has massive off-roading capability. It has all the driving modes, it has a locking center differential, it has a complex system of cameras that'll display to you what angle your wheels are at. It'll show you physically on the center stack what angle your wheels are at. And I've used this before to great effect. I've been on a Range Rover obstacle course where I went up and down some really interesting obstacles, one wheel 4 feet off the ground, and all that is made possible and controllable by having that system of cameras, by having that capable air suspension, by having the clearances front and rear. Well, I would bet that the number of Velar owners who take this vehicle off-road would number in the single digits, if really any at all. It's still really nice to know that you have that capability, especially on a day like this where the roads are absolutely treacherous and I've seen 2 or 3 cars in the ditch as I've driven down the highway. So how can I summarize my brief and very weather-interrupted time with this Velar? Well, let me start by saying this. In the city of Toronto, premium SUVs are a dime a dozen, but I really think this Velar stands out in a couple of important ways. In my opinion, the styling is second to none. The cabin really has a wow factor that not many in this segment can compete with. While the driving dynamics are somewhat more sedate than others in the segment, namely the F-Pace and the Macan from Porsche, this is no slouch, and I found it adequately prepared to be hustled around corners. And of course, what this has that most others don't is genuine off-road ability. Okay, so what did I dislike? Well, for starters, I did find the ride just ever so choppy with those 22-inch wheels. Now you can check this out online. Land Rover products are getting better year over year, but there's still that nagging concern about reliability. And third, finally, the price. It's really easy to get carried away, making this one of the most expensive vehicles in its class. The base Velar starts at $62,000, but for that money, you're missing out on some of the qualities that make this Range Rover-y. If you want to fix that, you've got 3 decisions to make. Number 1, diesel or gasoline. Decision number 2 are dynamic or not. This is largely an appearance package, and I think it makes the Velar look a lot more aggressive. I would recommend you go for this. And finally, pick your trim level. You can choose between S, SE, and HSE. With every additional letter added, you get swankier and swankier until you top out at $82,000. And then there's options. Yes, I alluded to this previously. There's a lengthy list of ways to part ways with your money if you want to buy a Velar. In fact, my demonstration model has precisely $11,840 worth of them. After delivery, this fully spec P380 HSE R Dynamic will deplete your bank account by $96,040 before tax. So is it expensive? Well, yeah, 96 grand is a lot of money for us regular people. But if you've got it, it's tough to beat the Velar's mix of comfort, luxury, performance, off-roading capability, and yes, status. I have a feeling I'll be seeing a ton of these this summer.